We've spoken about the Constitution and its integrity and how to protect it and what is the spirit of the Constitution. And now there's attempts to amend it that are eating at Eric.
Yeah. You know, on the, I don't know what, on the 10th of August, 2010, people went to a referendum. And by an overwhelming majority, they voted yes to the draft constitution. On the 27th of August, 2010, people congregated at Uhuru Park, hundreds of thousands of people. And we promulgated our new constitution. And I'm saying we because the constitution starts with we, the people, give ourselves this constitution for ourselves and our future generations. Those are the words of the constitution.
Right.
And so since that day, the 27th of August 2010, we've been living, that was the birth of a new republic. There was renewed hope in this country that a lot is going to happen. Since then, there have been several conversations around, is the constitution working? Is it not working? Is it developing? I mean, is it delivering what it should have delivered? Is it not delivering? And so on and so forth. And there have been several attempts at amending this constitution. I'll take you through just the main ones. One was an attempt in 2014. 2014 minus 2010?
That is 4 years.
4 years after the promulgation of the constitution, and just a year after the first election under this constitution, the then opposition Coalition for the Restoration of Democracy spearheaded an amendment to the constitution, where they wanted to look at various issues like, you know, amending the IEBC and how it's working, how much money is going to the counties and so on and so forth. That attempt flopped at the IEBC stage because the IEBC said you have not met the threshold of the required number of signatures, legitimate signatures. There was another attempt in 2018 to 2019 by a Third Way Alliance led by Dr. Ekuru Aukot, which was called the Punguza Mizigo Initiative, to amend the constitution. That flopped at the county assemblies level because county assemblies did not approve this. They did not get the requisite number of the county assemblies to approve this move. Then between 2018 and 2021, there was yet another attempt. And this is a famous Building Bridges initiative, BBI, which was looking at amending several clauses of the constitution. Over 70 parts of this constitution ought to be amended. This flopped at the courts, all the way to the Supreme Court, where it was judged that Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta, particularly Uhuru Kenyatta, could not have initiated a popular initiative to amend the constitution because the president is not popular initiative. In 2023, there were mandamanos in the country. And in 2024, there was NADCO, the National Dialogue Committee, which was co-chaired by Kalonzo Musyoka and the MP for Kikuyu, Kimani Ichung'wah. They came up with a report, and that report was containing several things. It gave birth to what we are discussing now that's before Parliament. It's the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2025. It has gone through 2 readings of Parliament. It's actually in the 2nd reading of Parliament, and it is seeking to do 3 things. Thing number 1, amend the Constitution by inserting the following new articles immediately after Article 204. Article number 204A. Establish the National Government Constituencies Fund. Article number 204B. Establish the Senate Oversight Fund. Article number 204C. Establish the National Government Affirmative Action Fund. Now, the memorandum and objects of this bill says that the principal object of this bill is to amend the Constitution to entrench the following funds, and those are the 3 funds I've mentioned. The establishment of the funds will ensure reasonable access to exclusive national government functions in all constituencies, ensure that the Senate is adequately empowered and resourced to perform its oversight functions, and also enhance the measures of the national government on affirmative action. This is the first amendment to our 2010 Constitution, happening 15 years after our Constitution. Let it go on record that the first spirited attempt to amend our Constitution that is most likely, if nothing happens, going to succeed is going to create 3 slush funds for our politicians. And I will take you through shortly the amendments to the previous independence constitution and whether those were benefiting the citizens or the ruling class. And we'll draw parallels. The first amendment to the 2010 constitution is benefiting the political ruling class by establishing a slush fund. And I am saying, my fellow Kenyans, that if we sit back here and we watch as Parliament starts tearing up our constitution by first putting in funds that benefit them, and then we sit back and ask ourselves what happened to our constitution, we will not have an answer to that. So the first amendment to our constitution being the creation of 3 funds, I say miss me with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
One, for giving us the timeline.
Yeah.
The process, how we got here, and putting into perspective what these funds are. Because at first glance, it sounds like constituency development.
That's okay.
Not so bad.
Not so bad.
Affirmative action. Yay. Senate oversight, that's their job. Let's give them funds. Thank you for putting that into perspective. Let me start with why has every other attempt at amending this constitution failed? One, was it that it did not benefit the representatives of our democracy enough? Was it that they were defeated at court level? Was it that it was just a distraction at the time, nothing serious? I'm trying to think of that so that I can figure out now this one, where do we attack from?
There's been several. Which one failed? Which one stands out?
Let me start with CORD.
Right.
Because
the
I'd
CORD
forgotten.
one of 2014.
Right. I'm starting to think. I had forgotten about a coalition called CORD, by the way.
It was called Okoa Kenya Initiative.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That one failed because?
So the Okoa Kenya Initiative that was led by, among other leaders, Raila Odinga.
And sorry to interrupt, but notice how many constitutional amendments will have close ties to Raila Odinga attempts.
Raila Odinga was there. He was the leader of CORD. The current Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, was a leader in CORD. Okay. Kalonzo Musyoka was a leader in CORD. When they went around and they collected signatures, they collected very many signatures. 1.6 million to be exact. That's what they presented to the IEBC. The IEBC is required to look at those signatures and see whether they meet the threshold. And they came back to them and said, we have looked at these signatures. Some of these do not look like signatures. They look like just somebody who just scribbled things on the paper. And so we cannot say that you've met the threshold of 1 million signatures to go into a referendum. And that's how it flopped. The IEBC said, you have brought so many, and we say no.
No.
Yeah.
All right, next attempt.
The next attempt, let's go into, there were parallel. There was an attempt by the Third Way Alliance of Okuru Aukot, which was called the Punguza Mizigo. And there was an attempt by Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta to amend the constitution under BBI.
Yeah.
So the BBI one went all the way to, establishing a team of elders to go and review and come back with a report and so on and so forth. It was stopped at the courts. People went to court, among them Dr. David D, and said, you cannot amend the core structure of our constitution. It went to the court, High Court, Court of Appeal, all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court agreed with all the other courts that no, this is not a popular initiative to amend the constitution. The one by Dr. Ekuru Aukot was called the Punguza Mizigo Initiative. It was now looking at reducing the number of MPs from 416 to 147, to cut public wage bill, abolish nominated seats in both parliament and county assemblies, set the presidential term to a single 7-year non-renewable term, allocate 35% at least to the national revenue to counties, introduce harsh penalties for corruption and economic crimes, reduce government bureaucracy and overlapped in duties. They got the signatures. They were found to be proper by the IEBC. The next step was that This has then got to go through the 47 county assemblies. And the county assemblies, majority voted no to this bill. Because at that same time, the BBI initiative was going on.
Okay.
Yes.
And I hate to say it, but those don't sound like bad suggestions. Right, next one, fast forward now.
Fast forward to NADCO. NADCO is established as, you know, a way of pacifying the country after the Maandamano of the Sufurias of 2023. And we established the National Dialogue Committee, which is bringing together both sides of the political divide. So from the opposition side, it was led by Kalonzo Musyoka. From the government side, we had the leader of the majority in the National Assembly, Kimani Ichung'wah, the leader of majority in the Senate, Aaron Cheruiyot, and others were in this. They met, they took views from the people, they came up with a report, and they said one of the things that we need to do is, among others, let's entrench CDF. Because there have been very many people who've gone to court to push back against the CDF.
Yeah.
And in all these attempts, the courts have said CDF is unconstitutional on account not of the amount of money, on account not of the gender of the members of parliament, but on account of principle of separation of powers. That the legislature cannot be involved in functions that are to be done by the executive. And the National Government Constituency Development Fund is basically creating a blur of those two lines. So on that principle, the courts have said no to CDF. So to address that, the political class is saying, wanasema iko shida, it's unconstitutional. So let's change the constitution.
Let's amend the constitution.
Yep.
You've called this national government CDF, the National Government Affirmative Action Fund and the Senate Oversight Fund, slush funds. Why? What's a slush fund, and why are they slush funds?
Like a slush fund, you can Google, and then you'll give us the
dictionary definition.
Right, because actually somebody is asking Wangoi, explain what is slush fund again, please. She's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Let me get the dictionary definition.
Slush fund meaning.
There we go. So
you can even project it.
A slush fund.
According to the Oxford, a reserve of money used for illicit purposes, especially political bribery.
There you go. Another one, a sum of money set aside for unofficial, unauthorized, or potentially unethical purposes, often hidden from formal accounting records, usually in contexts involving corruption, bribery, or political manipulation.
You know, when I know you're like, at
No,
that
go.
slush fund. You know, yesterday when I knew we'd be talking about this, I'm like, surely there must be some pros. Let's look at the bigger picture.
Right.
Let's look at the pros and cons.
The bright
Let's
side.
balance this.
Let's
thing out.
balance
Let's
this.
be objective.
Let's be objective.
Okay.
It was torture.
Yeah.
I thought about something we've talked about a lot, whether it's schools and hospitals, and just being able to have those functions closer to the people in a way that's accessible by the policymakers. And then I just couldn't keep going.
Oh.
You didn't find?
No. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Some of the pluses was that equity and access, that
Right.
it provides equity and access. Some of the points I have, you know, NGCDF helped build schools and health centers and water projects. What has come up a lot the last few weeks?
Yeah.
Increased oversight and representation.
Right.
I was like, well, you know, if you entrench this in the Constitution, if you amend the Constitution, that means now there's, I don't know if there's a thing as proximity to oversight, but it's increased oversight. It complements devolution. It doesn't compete with it, surely. I think there's a complementary basis there. Any of those, have any of those struck a chord that there's a possibility that it's
Yes.
not too bad?
Yes.
Okay,
They make sense.
okay.
They do.
But
not to this fund. You see, what does NGCDF do? It goes into schools,
Bursaries.
Yeah.
bursaries. It goes into education. Okay, it builds classrooms.
Yeah.
It gives people money to go to school. It also builds police stations. Right? It does not hire police officers. It just builds police stations. This is what the national executive has. We've just looked at Schedule 4 in the previous hour. Schedule 4 of the Constitution gives these roles to the executive, the national government, which is okay. Now, why does the national government need to come and go through Parliament to create a constituency as a unit of devolution when its own national government administration units do not have constituency.
Right.
Look at Ngaos. We have regional commissioner. Now let's start from the minister. Okay. You have got the PS for coordination. You have a regional commissioner. You've got the county commissioner and the sub-county commissioner or deputy county commissioner, that's what they're called. And then you've got what? Assistant county commissioner and chief. Right? County. Have they created a unit at the national government level called constituency? Something that has a structure that has constituency?
No.
So if administratively the national government does not have a constituency as an administrative unit, it calls it a sub-county, but not necessarily the constituency, why then are we creating a constituency development fund? Under what structure are we creating it? And that is what the courts have been saying. A constituency is not a unit of development, nor is it a unit of administration. It is a unit of representation.
As in your MP from your constituency represents you in Parliament. There's this Senate Oversight Fund. The Senate plays a role over county governments. Fine. Are they lacking funds right now to oversight is my question. What is the reasoning behind creating a Senate Oversight Fund? Does the Senate lack the teeth to oversight counties right now? Does there exist already a Senate Oversight Fund that is unconstitutional and we're trying to entrench it?
Or a version of it.
Which of these is true? Yeah, or a version of it.
We'd ask the question, is there a constituency oversight fund? Because the National Assembly performs the role of oversighting the national government, right? The Senate also performs the role of oversighting the government and protecting devolution by also dealing with some level of oversight at county level. So, is there a constituency oversight fund?
Not to the best of my knowledge.
It is called CDF.
A constituency oversight, but no, that's not money for oversighting.
There you go. There you go.
What?
So they're drawing a parallel here because MPs wako na pesa yao, pia senators tuwapatie pesa yao.
Okay.
There's an arm of government called the legislature. The legislature is governed by the Parliamentary Service Commission. The Parliamentary Service Commission is the one that is allocated money for parliament services. We have a judiciary fund. We have a Parliamentary Service Commission that has a lot of money, hundreds of billions of money. They use that money to run the functions of Parliament. When MPs or any MP committee needs to go to any part of this country to go and see what's happening so that they can discuss this matter, they get money from the Parliamentary Service Commission. We were discussing yesterday that the county public, it's called what? The one, not Public Affairs Committee. The one that is looking at expenditure by county, public accounts. The County Public Accounts Committee. The ones that are chaired by the Homa Bay Senator, Mr. Kajwang. We said they went to which county the other day? Wasingishu. And they were looking at all these functions where money was spent. They went there, funded and financed and properly accommodated through the Parliamentary Service Commission. So is the county committee performing its oversight responsibility?
It is.
It did. We have seen even the Parliament holding sittings outside of Nairobi. They go and actually say, Senate is sitting this week in a
Mombasa,
certain county.
Or wherever.
They've not needed this fund. What is this fund now for?
Right. So you've answered my question. I was like, are they unable to perform their duties? Are they lacking teeth? Are they lacking finances? No.
So that was yours. My question was on the Affirmative Action Fund. Some might argue, okay, this way we get to address, I don't know, historical injustices. There's inclusion of marginalized communities. There's a version of that exist, and would it, again, devil's advocate, Affirmative Action Fund is the one that I'm thinking, okay, maybe maybe there's something there to entrench this in the Constitution, because
Okay.
have we seen equity as such, whether it's along gender lines or
Any other.
or any other.
I feel you. Except I think the Constitution through and through has entrenched affirmative action in like so many ways. The 2/3 gender role
Right.
is a form of affirmative action. Every other fund that we have created constitutionally and unconstitutionally has been to try and, you know, get to that into the affirmative action quotas. The requirement that structures be comprised of this and this, not just 2/3 gender rule in parliament, but elsewhere, all of those are affirmative action. Is there a need for a national government affirmative action fund, given that every affirmative action fund that has previously been done has just been co-opted? Think about youth fund, think about women's fund. How many women who are not close to the political class or, you know, close to so-and-so benefited from that? How many young people can say, I started a business courtesy of youth fund or Ruezo fund or every other fund? I don't know. That's just me, though. I don't know if those are constitutional, by the way. Youth fund is
They're not constitutional. They're created by, you know, some acts and some regulations of the PFM Act and so on and so forth, but they exist in law. And that's why they're able to get money. Now, the Affirmative Action Fund is basically CDF, but now for the woman rep. Okay? CDF is run by the constituency MP, the 290. The 47 women rep have been wondering, okay, Sasa, this guy is going to give a bursary as an MP and he'll get re-elected, or she'll get re-elected because she gave a bursary. I'm coming here, I'm saying, oh, you know, so give me a fund. So they are being given this fund. So they also, woman reps, and they're not called women reps, it's woman reps, because their title is woman representative. It's the gender issue. It is not a representation of gender. It is that the member of parliament is a woman. So the woman reps get this money so that they can also give bursaries the same way. So they can also fund, you know, small women groups here and there. They can fund youth groups here and there. They can give money for these things.
Oh, I completely misunderstood
Slush
this.
fund.
Or they can fund programs which have been struggling because they don't have the muscle to implement issues around access to, I don't know, menstrual justice and fighting FGM.
Yes.
I know their hands have been tied for the longest time whenever they're asked, the woman reps. So whenever they're asked, you need to help us, you're a woman rep, what are you doing in this region? Why are we still struggling with
Like,
teen
I don't
pregnancy?
have the money.
They say, I don't have the money. But if I did, I'd be able to address matters around, you know, this issue in Homa Bay or this specific issue in Kilifi.
Right. But then what's the work of a woman rep constitutionally?
3 things. ROL.
Representation, oversight, legislation. So then you don't need the money because it's not your job.
Okay. Can you imagine? I'm just trying to push.
I know. I know.
There's a State Department, and
But I see what you mean.
You're doing well.
Yeah.
There's a Ministry for Gender, okay? And under that Ministry for Gender, there are various agencies. And there's the State Department, and there are various agencies and programs on gender and affirmative action. There's a Ministry of Labor and Social Protection that also now looks at, you know, the marginalization and those that need social protection. And they get funding and programs that support that, okay? Now, the National Assembly should be oversighting to ensure that these programs actually work. They have the role of allocating funds in the budget. Parliament can remove money from this item and put money here. Right?
Right.
And nobody will ask Parliament. If Parliament today decided we have voted all together to remove money from this and put all the money to affirmative action, right? They will be justified. They cannot be taken to court for that. It's their job. They can do that. So the 47 women, plus the 290 men, plus the 12 young men and women who have been nominated, together, they can put money to those things that you're talking about, without necessarily being given, taking the money themselves, so they can go to the constituency. Nimelete.
And that has failed because of all the reasons we've talked about countless times.
Right? It's not their motivation.
That's true.
It's there's no impetus or need or want to do it. if they can get re-elected on the usual politics, because we don't hold them accountable to those roles. We hold them accountable to what have you done. Come a women rep, umekuja umefanya nini. So then we have to question, even when they do things on the ground, where they're getting that money from.
That's a good point.
I was trying to think through how many of, the issue of public participation, one that we've spoken about here. What is meaningful public participation for a bill of this extent? Eric, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Public participation for this bill has already happened.
Yep.
If I get it right, was it between May 5th?
It was a 2-week period.
Okay.
They went across the country. I think it concluded last week. Right?
All right.
At the beginning of May. I think they concluded on the first Friday or first Thursday of May. And that was it. Now, the Committee on Legal Affairs of the National Assembly is collating views and preparing its report to take that report before Parliament so that then we can do the second reading into the third reading and we amend the Constitution.
For constitutional, remember we have the blueprint now for meaningful public participation. We were shown during Rigathi Gachagwa's impeachment what meaningful public participation can look like. In the weeks, 2 weeks in May, where this public participation for constitutional amendment happened, 2 weeks to amend the Constitution. Did your daily, your Taifa Leo, your Daily Nation, your Business Daily, your Standard, whichever newspaper you buy.
Your Nation FM.
Your Nation, yes. Did they, wait, let me start with the papers. Was there a pullout there?
No.
For you?
Maybe there was, I didn't see.
No, because
Maybe it was coming later.
Right. We read every day. We are with these newspapers. We saw during the impeachment that they can print out a form and all you have to do is give your views there and fill in your name. Okay. On Nation FM on NTV, was there a public service announcement that there's public participation going on for this constitutional amendments? This is what it means for the Constitution. This is where you can air your views out. Come to the Baraza, come to KICC, come to the hall Pale Gikosh, and we'll discuss it at this and this date. Was there? And I missed it? Okay. To amend the Constitution.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
When it was removing Rigiji,
Yeah, the whole country was at a standstill.
Everyone.
We knew.
Okay.
You know, why I am so emotive about this is, let's look at history. We got the 2010 Constitution after a fight. People died fighting to have a new Constitution. Why were Kenyans saying, let's not amend this thing, let us change it altogether? It's because it had been bastardized so much from our independence Constitution in 1963. So we even have been running some graphics. From 1963, our Constitution was amended between 1963 and 1991, around 38 times of amendments. 1963, we came up with that Westminster parliamentary system. It had bicameral, it was the National Assembly and the Senate, and because it was 1963, we had the sovereign being the Queen, and we had internal self-rule with the Prime Minister. So the country was being run from Parliament. In 1964, we became a republic, so we amended that whole thing and we told the Queen, weka kwao, kwa kwenu. And we have now a head of state and government. So that was the first amendment. But we also amended that and said, 2 houses of parliament, why? Have one, call it parliament. This thing of bicameral, move it. The position of prime minister was then abolished.
Okay.
So the president was now the president. 1966, we came up with further amendments. This is how many years after independence?
Just a
3.
few.
3, okay.
And we are on to the amendment number 2.
No, wait. Are we counting
First one
from
was
63?
63 was when
Oh,
we
okay.
got it.
So, okay.
And we said, because now this is the time when Kenya Jaramogi were doing their thing, we said, now if you defect, you must go back to a re-election. Okay? So that was among the anti-defection laws were introduced into the Constitution. 2 years later, 1968, another amendment that expanded presidential powers. The vice president to automatically assume the presidency in case of the death of the president, saying in case there's the vacancy in the office of the president, have an election within 14 days, not 90 days, like short in that period. And also, the president can now hire civil servants. 1974, added more power to the president, changed presidential elections to a yes or no vote, to a single candidate. So candidate Nani, Janet, yes, no. So even if you say no.
So no, there's no other option. Oh, we shouldn't laugh, guys.
Okay. So there's one candidate endorsed by parliament, and then that name is taken to the people. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Aye, yes. No, no, when your mother. Yes. The president got more powers to appoint and dismiss constitutional office holders. Okay?
I was 74.
This is 1974. In all this, are you seeing where the citizens are getting more power, more things?
No.
It's politician.
Actually been taken further away from the citizen.
1982 coup happens.
Yeah.
And then
into the thick of it.
Now, constitution is again amended, introduce section 2A and say Kenya shall be a one-party state and the party shall be known as KANU. Okay? Everything else is illegal. 1982.
That was a constitutional amendment.
Yes. Section 2A was section 2A of the constitution. It was introduced in 1982, which said Kenya is a single party, de jure, one-party state.
You know, things click, but they don't click. Let me tell you how. Repeal 2A. I know the back of my mind knows that that's a constitutional amendment, a section that's being repealed. But knowing our constitution right now, I can't imagine that a constitution could say something like that. So, akili nakata kushikana the two. Let's go on.
1982, that's when that happened. 86, 4 years later. Remove security of tenure for judges and key public officials so they can go at any time. President Akikaive, Janet. Toa Janet. That was introduced in the constitution. Okay. Entrench executive control over public institutions. You inaitwa nini your public institution ito? National Commission on Human Rights. Those are the people who are lying here about Gen Z. Remove that constitution commission. What's it for? It's not helping us. It was introduced in 1986. People fought hard until 1991 at Kasarani. Moi stands up because Moi, the president, people were swearing, but then the oath of office, even in parliament, was to the president and the republic.
Loyalty pledge manenos.
Yes.
I pledge my loyalty to the president and nation of Kenya.
Indoctrination ilianza mapema.
My God. Okay.
After all that push, there was a meeting that took place. KANU was meeting in Kasarani. People before Moi spoke were standing up to say, hata watu wanasema multi-party hawa ni wajinga, hawajui mambo. Moi stood up and said, hata multi-party, hii section 2A, tutoe. And that is how the journey to repealing section 2A of our constitution came in.
So he bowed to public pressure.
Moi just said, okay, so
he said it's too much now,
let's just remove it. And that's when now we repeal section 2A. Right? Those were the amendments to our independence constitution. And if you looked at that document in 1991, and then you looked at what Kinashikuku came with from Lancaster in 1963, you'd be like,
is this
it can't be the same thing.
It can't be the same thing. And it was the same thing through Parliament. Like these amendments sailed through.
Parliament. Okay?
But the agitation for change really came leading up to 91.
Yes.
Okay. You know why this context is so important?
Let me just finish this point, Janet. Sorry.
Sure, go ahead,
I'm saying I'm getting very emotional about this because in 2010, when you got this constitution, people said, oh my God, these Kenyans, they've actually given themselves a new constitution in peacetime. Many countries get a new constitution out of a war. They've given themselves a new constitution in peace, as in they went and voted and said, remove that one, now we have a new one. Wow. Then look at it. There's chapter 3, something called the Bill of Rights, among the best and most progressive in the world, entrenching rights and freedoms of the citizens of Kenya. Then there's also a chapter called chapter 6 on leadership and integrity. They are saying that this is how we shall have ethics and leadership in leadership of our country. Oh my God, this is so beautiful. They even created 2 levels of parliament and 2 levels of government. Oh my word. That progressive constitution that has been held all over the world. There have been a lot of pushes to first not implement it fully, and now to amend it. Our first amendment on record to this constitution, if nothing happens in the next couple of weeks, is going to be this one, that gives money to the political class to have a dance between the executive and the legislature, to basically bastardize our legislature, to so that the legislature has no power over the executive, because the executive has the money and it is bribing the legislature with this money. This is the beginning of the mutilation of our constitution by co-opting parliament into it. Years down the road, your boys will ask you, Janet, where were you in 2025? And you'll say, I was hosting the biggest breakfast show in Kenyan media. And the next question is, did you know there was a constitutional amendment? You'll be like, yeah, I did. Or let's even say it's your grandchildren who ask you this. Shosho, did you know? What will you tell them? Because this is the beginning of the mutilation of our constitution. And if we do nothing about it, this will be it. We'll be answerable. If we just sit back and say, okay, I mean, it's politics, I mean, it's yet an article, walikuwa watu wawili, I mean, this is it. We'll never come back from it.
For shame.
Yeah, it goes back to what you just asked, which is either where was the noise or where was the public participation for this? Because everything you've just, this timeline, this history, I had interrupted you a bit, but you continued, but I'm like, I think these are the things that need to exist on record. This timeline that Eric has just shared, let it exist on record. That this constitution didn't just happen by accident, you know, and that this constitution, also the way it didn't happen by accident, also can't be played around with by accident. The gravitas of what this means, I don't know that people have fully grasped it.
No.
I don't think I had fully grasped it until
100%, yeah. I don't think so either.
Yeah.
And we are us, right? Mariam and Janet here. And I'm trying to figure out where, how, and when we missed, where the cracks were, that we've not all fully grasped it. And what window do we have? We don't have a window? Do we have a window? You asked just now.
There's always a window.
There's a window.
Between now and the next time this Committee of Justice and Legal Affairs presents its report to Parliament, there's a window. Even when it presents its report to Parliament, before it goes to the third reading, there's a window.
Right.
Even at the point of the third reading, there's a window. There's a window for the people of Kenya to say no. No, 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 no. Our first amendment to the Constitution cannot happen when the conversation has happened so willy-nilly, so surface level on how we amend our Constitution.
And this is why we speak to sometimes, not to make it sound like a conspiracy theory, but sometimes maybe that's why we speak to diversionary tactics, and we have to be very, very vigilant. There have to be people who are hyper-vigilant at all times, because I think somewhere in the melee of everything that's, because 17 decades have happened in this last 8 months, somewhere there, it's very easy to take advantage because there's something else happening.
Yes.
It's still affecting Kenyans, fair enough, but this hyper-vigilance sometimes gets lost in that noise.
I was looking through, because in my head I was like, when you said you were doing the Miss Me with that on that, I was like, wait. The whole thing, and this is complacency on my part, that has been giving me sort of reprieve, is knowing that for you to change a constitution, you need to go to a referendum. And then now it's like, okay, Eric is doing a Miss Me with that dig. It's not in all cases, right? There's specific clauses of the constitution that are protected. And if you want to change them, you have to go to a referendum. Dare I say, I think this bill infringes on those clauses.
Right.
And we need to go to a referendum. I'm looking through them. Protected clauses that would require a referendum. Supremacy of the Constitution. I already feel like these things violates the supremacy of the... I'm, again, not a legal expert, just off the top of my head. Okay, sovereignty of the people, national values and the principles of governance. The Bill of Rights, fine. Terms of office of the president, okay. Independence of the judiciary, okay. Functions of parliament. Objects, principles, and the structure of devolution. Are you telling me that that bill does not touch on those things?
They say it doesn't.
How so?
As they argue. Let me tell you, by the way, it's important for me to point this one out as I respond to your question. This bill has been sponsored by 2 members of parliament. One of them is Otiende Amolo. Otiende Amolo was in the committee of experts that gave us the current constitution. So the people who wrote the constitution, among them was Otiende Amolo, who is the current MP for Arieda constituency. He's a sponsor of this particular bill. The other one is Samuel Chepkonga, who's a member of parliament, right? Those 2 are lawyers. They know how to read and interpret the law. One of them wrote the constitution.
Right.
Okay? So they'd argue that this has not touched on any of those things. But you have a point that you raise here. Does it touch on the structure of parliament or the object of devolution? Because those people who've been going to court to argue against NGCDF have been using the argument that no, there's devolution. We came up with CDF before devolution to try and have some makeshift devolution. And then we came up with devolution in our constitution. CDF then goes contrary to that. Now,
so we need constitutional experts here.
Because we need to, Charles Ndungo on YouTube, the best constitution we'll ever have. The issue is majority of those in leadership positions were against it. That's the reason why it isn't fully implemented. But this one needs no changes. Then it never happened in my constituency. This is speaking to public participation. Where is the money that they're asking for both the women representatives and senators going to come from? It's coming from the loans the government keeps borrowing left, right, and center, smallest ever.
Right, we hadn't even addressed where that money is coming from.
Thank you.
We're just entrenching funds.
We literally entrenching funds. My parents, it looks like we've given politicians a lot of money, leaving ourselves with nothing. That's why we don't have money for school capitation. Farah Adam, all the initiatives and reforms are to suit the political elite. That's why we fail. Viongozi wamejipanga, kama raia lazima tujipange. And finally, Bibi Usuni, based on the current discussion on funds, it should worry us as wananchi that this haphazard allocation of resources is simply to serve the interest of policymakers. This has been a tough one. And then Bibi Usuni also says, ndio masomo for, well, she says Gen Z, I'd say for all generations, wajue pale tumetoka. Because not just Gen Z, in fact, Gen Z are the ones who awakened us, many people, to going back to the Constitution. I think it's for everyone to be. But this one has, it's shaken me a bit.
It has.
Yeah, there's a quote here just before we go back. It says, the Constitution is not a mere lawyer's document. It's a vehicle of life, and its spirit is always the spirit of age. It's not just a document. Look at how much it contains. It's our lives in that document.
Right. Yeah. And Eric, thank you so much for this Miss Me With That and for the perspective, because you could have just missed me with like NGCDF, they're trying to entrench it, but the perspective of if this is our first successful constitutional amendment, and what it does is just to give little big kitties actually, to our politicians, then that is the beginning of a downward spiral and the bastardization of our constitution. Thank you so much for that perspective.
Yeah, this was important. Usually, like, there's those emails that you send when you want to, I don't know whether even if it's after this, Nipe, just give us, so that then we're also able to share this with wider audiences and just say, this is happening in real time. But here's an opportunity to either send your views or whatever it is. I think that's the least we can do, right? Beyond this.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And find ways. This will be challenged in court, I foresee, to be honest. I don't think there was meaningful public participation. I think it does go against a lot of the principles of devolution, the functions of parliament. But I do foresee a court challenge. However, if they had not asked, if they've not come to us for public participation, let's still participate.
Yes.
So again, ile email na nakumbukanga inakunga clerk.senate@parliament.go.ke. Yes, clerk.senate@parliament.go.ke. Anzeni kutuma.
Hey, let's flood that email because this is.
If you go to parliament.go.ke, you will find all those notices, and among them you'll find this one for what is going on in terms of the National Assembly work. invitation for memoranda and all, but also anytime, if you just click on any of those invitation for memoranda, they'll give you the email for the Clerk of the National Assembly. You can send in your views to the Clerk of the National Assembly and say, by the way, the Parliamentary Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs is currently discussing this particular matter, and we'd like to say, to give our views on it. They've closed it, yes, but there's still time to say, no, can we reopen this thing?
Yeah.
Are we moving a bit too fast? This is amending our constitution. We participated in giving ourselves this constitution. I think the First Amendment at least should have the people involved.
Right.
100%.
Yeah, the First Amendment should have the people involved in saying, let's have it. I was completely against BBI. And I kept saying I'm against the BBI. And I was against BBI on the principle that it was being hurried through by the political class again. And my argument was, why don't we just organize, it's been 10 years since the implementation of our constitution. Let's have a 10-year
check-in.
Check-in. Have a national conversation at Bomas. You can even have 47 county conversations. And then have a national conversation where we are reviewing, auditing. We have implemented this far, this has failed. We have not been able to implement this because
of 1, 2, 3.
Of 1, 2, 3. Then for that case, to make ourselves implement better, let's review this, let's entrench this, let's enhance this and the other. But you can't just wake up and, decide, katiba, by the way, in a bow.
Wow. We don't have Your World coming up. We have a live broadcast that's taking place any minute from now. But this has been Fixing the Nation, the sobering timeline of the Constitution. So thank you for being with us, for your engagement. That website, parliament.go.ke, can we please visit it and look at, there's a section there called Bills. I've just opened it. Just take a look at it, and there's leeway there to email and to share your views and to push back. This is the only country we know and have, so let's fight for it. Thank you for being on Fixing the Nation with me, Janet Bugwa, Eric Latiff, Mariam Bishar. Nation FM, inabamba leo, na itaendelea kubamba.